We know that when a computing device runs an app, it relies upon RAM to carry out this process efficiently. In Windows, we can track how much RAM our apps are using with a utility called Task Manager. Here it is, listing the apps and processes that have code and data stored in RAM ready for the CPU to access. At this point, neither the RAM, CPU, or disk access stats are of any concern, as there is plenty of spare capacity in each of them. However, what happens if the amount of RAM being used becomes critical, as in this case? The amount of RAM being used is now over 90%, and when the CPU is required to process a request from another app, there is not enough spare RAM for it to use. In this case, notice that the disk access time has shot up to over 20%. This is because the CPU is using virtual memory. It has earmarked a part of the hard disk and is using it just as it would have used RAM if it were available, storing data and code that it is currently working on in that space. This is not as quick as it would have been using RAM alone, but it gets around the problem of having filled up the RAM with the code and data from all the other apps that are also working away in the background. If this happens regularly, it means that your PC will be running slowly, and you could improve its performance by installing extra RAM so that the CPU didn't have to fall back on virtual memory. If it only happens occasionally, you will probably hardly notice it and would only have to shut down a few apps to improve your PC's performance. So virtual memory is actually a part of a hard disk that the CPU has put aside to use once RAM is filled up or has got to a critical level and the CPU needs to use it for running additional apps.